UFC on ABC just wrapped up, and my oh my, what a card and what a main event that just wrapped up. This fight was the ultimate, there's levels to this moment. That was probably the greatest performance I've ever seen. I mean, we've had, Conor beating Eddie Alvarez, high stakes with the championship, all that stuff. We have David Figueiredo putting forth a gore film in front of us when he destroyed Joseph Benavidez. But in terms of technical skill, I've never seen someone perform at the level of Max Holloway. Max Holloway that night might have been the greatest fighter I've ever seen. It was like he entered the Matrix. I mean, he was literally talking to Daniel Cormier on ringside while slipping Kattar's punches at the same time. He's looking at DC, talking to him, and he's dodging Calvin Kattar's punches at the same time. I've never seen this ever in any combat sport. Boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, MMA. I've never seen this stuff ever in my entire life. You can go back Muhammad Ali, you could talk about Prince Nassim, the wildest of fighters, and you've never seen this kind of stuff. Max Holloway's iconic, man. I mean, how did anybody beat Max Holloway? When you look at this fight, when you look at his performance, you think, how did anybody beat that guy? What he did there tonight is insane. Now, you have to give credit to Calvin Kattar as well. Calvin Kattar stuck in there. He never got dropped. He got stunned dozens of times between the third and fifth round specifically. I mean, he got rocked bad by that one elbow that really slowed down Kattar. And then the combinations in the fourth were just brutal. I mean, they were beautiful, but brutal. Holloway has some of the most artistic combinations I've never seen in the sport, man. I'm definitely going to be copying a bit of those and working on the bag and stuff. I know everybody's going to. I cannot wait to go back and watch this fight again and really analyze it because it's going to take a while. Holloway showed everything from the book in this fight. Imagine Holloway's better than this. Imagine there's more tools that he has. He didn't show us everything. That would be mind-boggling. That had to have been everything he knew, everything he trained for, all the tricks out there, whatever you want to talk about, whenever fighters hold back or anything. This looked like Holloway showed everything in his game besides, of course, the grappling. From pumping the jab high, feinting low with it, and then coming up with the right hand. The jab pulls back kick combinations, trying to zone in Calvin Kattar. The plethora of slip counter shots. I mean, it was insane. Some of those angles he was taking for the head kicks that was wrapping behind the head. And credit to Calvin Kattar's offense as well. He landed some pretty good shots on Holloway. He was measuring for that right hand and connected with a few of them. Some uppercuts here and there. Some big left hooks, but Holloway's chin, it's still granite, man. He was able to take one of the biggest punchers in this division's shots and look like it did nothing. I mean, there were only a few times. I think in the second round, Holloway ran into a right hand. You see his leg shake a bit. It was the most hurt I've seen in this fight. In fact, one of the most hurt I've ever seen in his entire career, to be honest. But there was a big problem with Kattar, and that was the fact that whenever he did connect on Holloway, Holloway backed up. Right, Holloway had to get away, recoup, and then continue on his volume on top of Kattar. The thing that Kattar did not do was he didn't capitalize on the damage that he delivered, right? When Holloway caught Kattar, he avalanched on top of him. Like I always talk about this, the momentum factor. It's a snowball effect. Eventually, it turns into an avalanche if you don't stop his output. This is what happens when you allow him to work. He does not stop, and he does the craziest stuff on you that you are not prepared for. Kattar did the opposite. When he landed that big right hand, he kind of just pulled off and moved away from Holloway for some reason and didn't take advantage of that situation and start being aggressive and putting his combinations on Holloway the same way Dustin Poirier did, right? The reason why Dustin Poirier had a lot of success against Holloway, of course he has the power, he's a little bit bigger, all that stuff, but technically he was able to land his punches first, right? When he was able to land that big right hand off of his shift combination, he put the combos on Holloway. He started to do what Holloway does to everybody, but he did it on him. He did not allow Holloway to get back into the exchange. And that's ultimately what you have to do. Jose Aldo did it for the first 2 rounds of their first fight. Conor McGregor did it back in the day. Alexander Volkanovski did it in their first fight. And ultimately, the same reason why Kattar lost as Zabit is the same reason he lost to Max Holloway. Whenever he was winning some sort of exchange, he kind of just let it go. He didn't advance on top of it. Man, though, that was insane. And you have to give it to Holloway. He's the best boxer in the featherweight division, some might say, of the UFC. I don't push him there yet. There will be recency bias if people say that. Conor McGregor is still, and always has been, the best boxer in the UFC. And even still today, what I saw from Holloway, I don't think he could do anything like that to Conor McGregor, to be honest. I think if he fights Conor, he might lose to Conor for a lot of the same reasons he lost to Poirier, and he lost to Conor back in the day. But of the featherweight division, he's definitely the top guy. I mean, people were thinking maybe Zabit was a better boxer, maybe, Calvin Kattar's a better boxer, Shane Burgos. People were talking about a bunch of different featherweights that are better boxers than Holloway. I even thought Kattar was a better boxer than Holloway. I just never saw this stuff ever from Holloway. I've never seen him do this to anybody, but he proved everybody wrong. Definitely the best boxer the featherweight division has ever seen. You know what's really crazy though? Alexander Volkanovski beat this guy twice. That's the craziest thing about this. How did anybody beat this guy? How did anybody beat Max Holloway? I cannot wait to go back and watch the fight again. What's next in line for these two? Always getting a title shot. I know he wants to fill in if anything happens to Conor and Poirier. Honestly, I don't like either of those fights for him. He definitely deserves a title shot in the featherweight division. And we do know that Volkanovski is going to fight Brian Ortega in March. I like his chances against Brian Ortega 2.0. Against Volkanovski, though, I don't know, man. It's hard. I know he's evolving in front of our eyes, even still today. And that's going to be a pretty hard thing to go against, but it's also pretty hard to go against that Volkanovski already beat him. And he beat him twice. Yes, the second fight was extremely close, but Volkanovski is a high IQ fighter. He makes a lot of adjustments between fights, and he makes a lot of adjustments inside of fights, and he has a great corner behind him with one of the best strikers, probably the best striker MMA's ever seen, in Israel Adesanya, right? He's going to make a lot of adjustments in the third fight with Holloway, but that is if Volkanovski is able to beat Brian Ortega, which is not a given. That's a hard fight for Volkanovski. And as for Calvin Kattar, man, he's probably going to have to take a long time off. That was some horrendous damage. Yeah, getting cut up, yeah, getting broken nose. That's not the worst of it. The brain damage. The guy couldn't even keep his back off the cage without being wobbly in the fourth round. Like, he could barely keep his balance without the cage supporting him. That's really bad. And I understand he was a lot more coherent than I thought he would be. I mean, he was actually speaking in sentences. But man, he's going to take a long time off. That's some bad damage he sustained. He's never been dropped. He's never been knocked down his entire career. That was the closest we've ever seen. Multiple times. So I don't want to think about a fight for Calvin Kattar. The landscape is going to change a bit until he comes back. If he comes back soon, I do not like his chances against anybody in the top of the division. His chin will be way too soft coming off this fight. Now, I did miss the co-main event because I was making the breakdown of Ponzinibbio versus Li Jingliang during that fight, so I have to go back and watch it. But Li Jingliang, with a big upset, knocks out the returning Ponzinibbio, man. The long-awaited return over 2 years enacted due to terrible infections to his blood and to his bone. Li Jingliang was able to put together that combination, trying to counter with the right hand, and then flinging behind it a left hook that catches Santiago Ponzinibbio clean to the chin. And the Leech did a lot of good disruptive work. I mean, a lot of feints, a lot of erratic head movements, and it looked like Ponzinibbio was extremely uncomfortable and extremely unconfident on throwing anything at Jingliang. He couldn't really find his distance at all because of the disruptive nature from Jingliang's tactics in the fight. So Ponzinibbio was just being really safe in the fight. He was throwing a lot of right leg kicks, a lot of jabs from a distance, very fast jabs, and he was taking that lateral step with the jabs as well. But the thing was, Ponzinibbio definitely looked a bit rusty. He was a lot more gun shy than I've ever seen him. The guy is a berserker in the cage. I've never seen him that gun shy in my entire life. I mean, he's fought guys who fainted in front of him constantly. He's fought Gunnar Nelson, who's extremely unorthodox and someone you don't want to really rush into. Ponzinibbio was way more gun shy in this fight than he was against Gunnar Nelson, or Neil Magny with the big reach, or any of his previous 31 opponents. And the big showing of his rustiness was the way he was throwing his right hand. It was very awkward, the way he was throwing it. He was very static, and it was a stiff punch. It looked like a labored punch. It was no real snap into it. It looked like he was just trying to land with some kind of power shot because it seemed like he was kind of losing the first round. There was no setup to it, no movement, which is very uncharacteristic because Ponzinibbio's big with movements, big with lateral steps with his punches, and you did not see any of that when it came to his right hand. Even when you look at his Neil Magny knockout, I mean, there was movement and there was a setup to it by him posting and measuring off his lead. Same thing with the Gunnar Nelson right hand and all of his right hands he's ever thrown, but Jingliang was able to counter it very effectively and put an end to that anticipation, man. And Ponzinibbio's 34 years old now. It'd be interesting if he ever does come back the same as he did before, but given his age and given the fact that he just got knocked out, just like I said in my prediction video, I was not confident in Ponzinibbio's return, and I'm definitely not confident now in his further fights. But who should they fight next? I believe Li Jingliang is right outside the top 15. Why is Conor McGregor number 15? That is crazy. Conor McGregor is number 15 in the welterweight division now. I think Li Jingliang versus Robbie Lawler would be a really good fight, or Bilal Muhammad. That'd be an interesting fight, or even Jeff Neal. I actually like the Jeff Neal fight. So Jeff Neal's coming off the loss of Stephen Thompson. Yeah, I really like Li Jingliang versus Jeff Neal. That'd be very interesting. And as for Santiago Ponzinibbio, man, the welterweight division is the hardest division to get into the top 15 because of how strong those fighters are at the lower ranks. It really depends what the UFC wants to do with him. If they want to build a name off of him, they can probably do him versus Miguel Baeza, the young 10-0 fighter. They could do him versus Randy Brown, just to get back into the swing of things without falling victim to that kind of power. Maybe him versus Carlos Condit, who defeated Matt Brown. That'd be very interesting. Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Carlos Condit actually makes a lot of sense. I'll probably do that one. And then we go to Alicio de Chirico knocking out Joaquin Buckley in the very first round due to a head kick. Withered away all of that hype. Alessio Chirico was very composed in this fight. It looked like he was in control, to be honest, even though he was only backing up, and he was actually the one that had to deal with the aggressiveness that Buckley was presenting in the fight. He was moving back, engaging everything. Buckley was quick, he was explosive, he had a low stance and just coming in there with swift combinations. And it looked like Alessio was hawking Joaquin Buckley. Alessio was just moving away calmly and looking for his opportunity, looking for the big shot. And then when you saw him throw that one backstep counter right hand as Buckley was trying to take the outside foot, you knew that Alessio definitely timed Buckley at that moment. He was very confident he would be able to catch Buckley slipping and eventually caught him with that head kick. Whenever Buckley wants to go and explode at his opponents, you generally tend to see him lower his stance a bit and his mindset goes straight to offense. At that very moment, when Joaquin Buckley was looking to come in, Alessio just threw out that big head kick, timing him perfectly, landed to the top of the crown, and put Buckley to sleep, man. A highlight knockout that we're going to see on replay multiple times. Amazing performance by Alessio Chirico. The big thing is he snapped a 3-loss streak he was currently on. I mean, he was a big underdog going into this fight, and on paper, rightfully so. Who should he fight next? I'd like to see him fight Gerald Mearshart. That would be an interesting fight. And as for Joaquin Buckley, I think him versus Bartosz Fabinski would be an interesting one. And then we go to Punahele Soriano, knocking out Duško Todorovic with 12 seconds left of the first round. It looked like Duško seemed to be the more technical fighter, of course. He had more variety to his striking. He was trying to go for the takedowns. He was landing some good kicks, trying to put some combinations together, throwing big shots at Soriano, but his downfall was his defense, like I was talking about in my prediction video. He has this laziness about him where he stands up tall, drops his hands, and all sort of stuff, and that goes right into his head movement, which I do not like when he comes up against a guy who hits as hard as Soriano. Ultimately, I did think that Todorovic would have been able to take down Soriano, but I did not expect Soriano to defend it so easily. Right, he was so much stronger than Todorovic in the clinch, and that shocked me a bit because of the way I've seen Todorovic flip people over, double leg him against the cage and all sort of stuff. He's a very strong guy, so Soriano definitely impressed me in the clinch there, and he eventually found the big shot as Todorovic kept leaning back away from punches and leaning back with no counter shots. Right, so if you're just constantly leaning back and slipping punches that way without countering your opponent, their hands are eventually going to catch your chin because you're not stopping their punches. You're just making them miss, and that's never going to be an endless cycle. They're eventually going to catch up to you. Right, you've seen Anderson Silva do a sort of thing where he was able to slip punches this way, but he was countering his opponents while doing it. The only time he didn't do that was against Chris Weidman, and he ate a left hook to the chin. And as DC was saying throughout the commentary, Soriano was straightening his punches a lot more and ultimately pinpointing his shots a lot better and getting it to the target faster. So great performance by Punahele Soriano. Another underdog that won tonight. And that's the end of the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to thumbs up. If you enjoyed my content, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.